There you go. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Talking to the Doll Benfica podcast, episode number 170. After a week off, we're back, and we're back better than ever. We got a packed house. Steve Santos is in the house. Patrick and Cristiano Oliveira. Patrick and Cristiano Oliveira are actually on the other side, as you may know. And Steve Santos finally got the shit together, so he's here. What's going on, Steve? I haven't heard from you in a while.
You know, been around without internet, but made things happen today, and things are working out.
You didn't have to go to Neil's house, did you?
Thankfully, no.
What's going on, Cristiano? We miss you, bro.
Uh-oh.
I'm doing wonderful. I'm here, guys. I'm here. I'm doing just wonderful. I'm just excited that Patrick's made it to like Brazilian superstar level where he just goes by one name now. I mean, Steve goes by Steve Santos. I go by Cristiano Oliveira, and Patrick just goes by Patrick.
I think I bungled it up last time I said it. I didn't pronounce the K, so I didn't want to mess it up this time. Anyway, on tonight's podcast, we will look back at Benfica against Arouca in Aveiro, where Patrick and Cristiano were in attendance. We'll also look at this weekend's game, Benfica against Moreirense at Estádio de Luz, that Patrick had the honor of calling the play-by-play. And we'll look at the Champions League draw and also at the end of the transfer window and the players that could have and that didn't and all that good jazz. So let's start with the Arouca game. I know it's probably a huge it's probably a huge forgetfulness in everybody's mind. Everybody wants to forget that one. I'll give you the lineup real quick. Júlio César, Smid, Luizão, Lisandro, and Liseu across the back. Samaris and Pizzi in the midfield. John and Gaetano on the wings. Jonas and Mitroglou were up front. I'm gonna turn the floor to you guys, to both Patrick and Cristiano, since you guys were in attendance at Estádio de Aveiro. And Cristiano, I'll start with you. Impressions on the game. It's looked like a game that if we had been there for 3 hours, we probably wouldn't have scored a goal.
Yeah, I mean, Benfica had a lot of possession. I thought, to be brutally honest with you, I didn't think they really created many scoring opportunities. Patrick and I just sat there and looked at one another. It looked like the team was lacking creativity. It just looked like they weren't into the game. They kept touching the ball around, but really with no danger, coming into Bracali's box. They had a few shots on goal, but every single one of them, I think with the exception like one, went straight at him where he didn't have to, dive and make a save. So I just thought it was a sloppy game all around. And like you said, if he could have been there all day, they were not going to score a goal. And I thought that Rui Vitoria dropped the ball on a couple of different lineup changes that he should have done earlier in the game, and in particular with Victor Andrade having played so well in the prior game, coming in second half substitute and changing the game around. And I thought that he should have started the game here in Aveiro, and he did not do that. He instead opted to go with Ola John, who I thought was pretty much invincible in that game. Didn't do much. So there's a couple of things I could go here with Rui Vitoria, but I'm gonna pass the mic over to Patrick so he could explain to us what this.
Yeah, and Patrick, the choice of Ola John could very well that they had Ola John on the market, so it was good to have him play and maybe attract some suitors. So that was perhaps the choice, but Ola John hasn't shown me anything at all this season. What did you think of the game in general?
Yeah, I don't think. Well, he's since moved on, I believe, on deadline day. I think he's gone to Reading today, Ola John.
Yeah.
So clearly he's done enough to earn a move there to England. But no, I didn't see a lot, to be honest. I think it was more a case of him being picked on seniority rather than anything else, and just trying to temper the enthusiasm surrounding Vitor Andrade, who eventually was the go-to man already at half-time when they're trying to change the game. But funnily enough, and Chris will back me up on this, within the first minute I turned to him and said, "Oh, it's great intent shown from Benfica. It's an encouraging start," because really the first 40 to 50 seconds of the game, they came out with a fantastic tempo. They were zipping the ball around. The choice to go with Samaris instead of Fazer looked to be a good one. I thought, in terms of linking some of the areas of the pitch that we talked about previously that had been an issue with the first 70 minutes of the Estoril game. And then literally a minute later, Arouca scored, and that made it so much easier for them. It just gave them a perfect game plan. They were nominally at home, but the whole crowd was Benfiquistas, and it was like being at Estadio da Luz, really, a mini Estadio da Luz, as Chris likened it to, because the way the stadium's set up. And I think that atmosphere worked against Benfica in some ways. You had a lot of travelling fans there, and once they'd fallen behind, then a lot of the anxiety crept in, and there just wasn't much lucidity about Benfica's play. They didn't really have clear minds. There wasn't a clear game plan, and it showed, really. There weren't too many chances created, and as the game wore on, as you said, 3 hours, could have been 3 days. I don't think they ever really looked like scoring. And then they got frustrated with some of the time-wasting antics of the opposition players, but that's always going to happen. That's something else we saw against Moreirense, and it was a very underwhelming performance, and really an opportunity missed with Sporting and Porto having dropped points the previous day.
Great point. But I also want to throw this in there. Benfica didn't exactly play their best game, but I think we should also give some credit here to Arouca, because I thought that they played their game tactics, whatever, to perfection, whatever it is that the coach came in there, the game plan. And I thought they were excellent as well. So I don't want it to be just about Benfica here, because I thought that the other team played well.
And Patrick, you mentioned the change for Samaris and Feza, between Samaris and Feza. In your opinion, what do you think Samaris differs from Feza in that position? What do you think he brings that's different from what Feza brings?
I think he's a much more competent footballer, to be honest. I think Feza is effective. He's more of a shield, more of a wrecking ball, if you will, someone to win the ball back and then give a short pass. From what I've seen, admittedly, I've come in and he was still recovering from a long-term injury. I came in with the Braga game in March. His first game back after injury was the 5-1 win over Academic, which he scored in. So I haven't seen him really over the course of a full season. So I don't want to judge him too much based on what I've seen, which admittedly isn't a lot. But having seen Samaris more, I just think he's a more competent footballer. He gets his head up. He's more aware of what's around him. He's more competent on the ball. And I'm delighted he got his first goal, because he is more than just a defensive midfielder. And he'd scored goals for the Greek national team. He'd scored goals for Olympiacos. I saw no reason why he couldn't score goals for Benfica. And really, I mean, we'll get onto this, I'm sure, but the goal at the weekend against Moreirense, he only shot because there was no other option, really. He was so close to the goal. It would have been absolute sin not to shoot, and I'm hoping that gives him a bit more confidence to try and show a bit more going the other way, because then that will start to free up some of Benfica's other players once you can take opposition players out of the game that way. So I think Samaris just offers a bit more in both phases of the game, if you will, or three, if you're going to include transition as well. But I think there's not much between them defensively in terms of what they offer from what I've seen. But Samaris can definitely offer a bit more in offensive transition, having won the ball back, or building a move as well.
Yeah, and Steve, coming into this game, Benfica knows that Porto had tied, Sporting had tied. They then had a chance to go ahead and leapfrog those two to achieve some separation. Do you think that because it was this early in the season that the team still isn't mentally prepared to be able to handle that type of anxiety that they might have felt?
I don't think the team has ever really reacted well to that type of situation. There was a certain game at Passos last year, even under Jesus, that Cristiano likes to bring up over and over again, where we had the same opportunity to put some space between us and Porto in January, no less, at the beginning of the season. It just seems like it's a bit of a weakness of ours to find that little bit of nastiness or effectiveness when we really need it, and kill off a game and get the points that we need.
Yeah, and Cristiano, really, Julius says it again. I mean, he avoided a much heavier loss. I mean, with 15 minutes in, we could have been easily 2-0 down.
The guy's been worth every single penny that Benfica has paid him throughout his year and now month or whatever it is into his Benfica career. We spoke many times about Oblak and such and other goalkeepers, but this dude's been absolutely lights out, and you guys hit it right on the head. I mean, if it wasn't for him, it would have been a much uglier scoreline. And I think the conversation now might be a little bit different. We might be talking about Rui Vitoria, whether this guy's competent enough to lead Benfica to the promised land. And that's the thing with me. Steve brings up that Benfica had these problems last year under the other coach, in particular that one game against Paço Ferreira. But is it that the team's mentality is it that the team is weak mentally, or is it that this coach just couldn't get this team up for this one game and this one very important game that I thought Benfica could have had an opportunity to be 2 points up on Porto going into Porto in 2 weeks or 3 now because of the international break. So I think you could pose that question, 2 different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, so instead of leapfrogging these two and achieving some separation, we actually ended up losing 2 points. A point or
no,
2
1 point.
Yeah,
1 point. 1 point.
2.
Oh, we lost 1 point.
2.
No, we lost 1 point to both of those teams. What do you mean we lost 2? They gained a point and we lost. We didn't gain a point. That's a point that we lost.
Okay. Against the other team, yes. Okay, you're right. My bad, Chris.
Yeah.
Your math is always better than mine.
No, wait.
No,
Porto
you're right.
and Sporting,
Dude, you're
Porto Sport gained a
right.
point. We gained 0. So how does that gaining 2 points? We lost 1 point. Whatever. You know what I mean. Whatever.
Don't mind Steve. He doesn't have Wi-Fi. His calculator's not working.
Exactly.
Yeah, so turning our attention to let me just before we go to the Moreirense game, Chris, do you think that the fact that we didn't jump ahead right away, do you think that kind of suits us and that keeps us on our toes for now, the beginning of the campaign, knowing that we can't slip up anymore?
No, I mean it's a long season, but it just sucks because there's so many questions coming into the season regarding the new coaching staff. And when you come into game 2 of the season, drop points right away after, mind you, after not having a particularly very impressive game the week before, because a lot of people like to talk about the final scoreline, which was 4-0, but in reality, it was a BS game. It was an ugly, ugly game until minute 74. So that's just whatever. I forgot your question as I kept rambling.
No, I was saying, do you think the fact that we didn't achieve separation from the other 2 teams and that we're now a point behind them, do you think that suits us more, that role suits us more rather than a leading role?
No. I think Benfica is a type of club that's been accustomed to being in the lead, and I don't believe in that crap playing from behind.
Yeah. So
Steve,
turning our attention.
Steve. Deixa o Steve falar. Vai, fala, Steve.
I was going to say the same as Chris. I think we already are suffering from quite a bit of an anxiety. I won't say attack, but there's a lot of desperation within the club right now. I don't think between us not signing players, between people not really being sure if Rui Vitoria is the right coach for us, I think that there is enough. There's enough desperation and anxiety and uncertainty that we don't need to be behind as well. I don't think that's a card that we're going to need added to the deck. I just don't see it.
Yeah. And Patrick, you're actually in the bowels, if you want to call it, of the club. What's the general feeling all around in the hallways and the people that you speak to? What's the general feeling of the people that work for Benfica?
There is a lot of uncertainty around the club. I think that's always going to be the case whenever you move on from a coach who's been there for such a long time. 6 seasons in modern football at such a big club is a huge time frame. So particularly a successful one as well, having gone many years without winning a league title, then to win 10, then to win 3 rather in the space of 6 years was hugely significant. So I think there is the underlying notion this could be a transitional season. Of course, that's not what anyone wants. But I think there is the idea that if Benfica didn't win the league this season, I think the coach will at least get a full season. But I don't think it's only down to the coach. There's been some significant departures as well. You've lost the vice captain. You've lost the second top scorer, who, don't forget, has been top scorer in previous seasons as well, and who was a brilliant foil to Jonas. So you've lost 19 goals from the league already last season. You've lost 5 or 6 in Maxi. And these aren't things that can be easily replaced. Nelson Semedo's come in. You can't expect him to be a perfect ready-made replacement for Maxi Pereira. The club is going down a different route with the promotion of more players from the academy. So I think there needs to be more patience. Clearly, the new manager has been given a certain brief, which he is following. So there is a bit of uncertainty. No one, I don't think, is 100% sure. Probably even the president, he wouldn't admit it, but even he is keeping an eye on Rui Vitoria. That's something we'll talk about, I'm sure, later. But Cristiano and I were in the press conference, and Luis Felipe Vieira was in there keeping a close eye. That was the same on the opening day against Estoril. I wasn't at any of the Jesus press conferences at the end of last season, so I can't tell you if that's something the president normally does at home games. But I think it is still the early stages of the season. Don't forget that we've had 4 competitive games, so I think there is a case of everyone is still getting to know one another. Everyone is still feeling their way around a little bit, so to speak, and it will require patience. And the more patience the fans and the players have, the more successful the club will be. But that's not easy to have when you're used to winning things. So I think there is probably a bit of anxiety, not just in the fan base, but also within the club itself.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a new thing, like you said, Patrick, but I do know that the papers reported that Luis Felipe Vieira was in attendance at the first training session following the loss to Arouca. So call it what you will. I mean, obviously, Luis Felipe Vieira has learned from his lessons in years past, where he's been too quick to judge and to let go of guys such as Fernando Santos. So he doesn't. I don't think he's going to be making that mistake anymore. He's going to give Rui Vitoria some time to do what he needs to do. I think that Rui Vitoria is capable, but we just got to give him some time. So we'll see what happens. But turning our attention to the Moreirense game, which is a game that happened this past weekend, and I'll give you the lineup real quick. Júlio César, Semedo, Luizão, Lisandro, and Eliseu across the back. So the same back 4 that we had against the Roca. Samaris and Pizza also repeat starters. And then Andrade finally got us started. And Gaetan on the other side. Jonas and Mitroglou up front. And Steve, I'll go to you first. I know that Jardel's been hurt, but Lisandro is really cementing himself as a viable starter.
Oh, absolutely. He offers you, like we said so many times before, with the ball, he offers you so much more. And what Jardel really had in his favor was that he really understood the system that JJ liked to play. I know we're talking a lot about our former coach, but now that that's gone, you have a very competent footballer in Lisandro versus a guy who's got a bit of pace and defends somewhat well, but has a lot of frailties that were masked by Jesus and the way we played at one point in time. So I think the more that Lisandro gets to play, the more that he will cement his place, just because he is a much better footballer. There's no way around it.
Yeah, and Chris, is it me or does it seem that Luizão is a little bit off this start of the season?
I'll tell you right now, Luizão, in that one game in particular, the one in Aveiro against Arouca, the dude looked like he was on another planet. Looked like he was not on the soccer. And I tell you, a lot of people came over here on Twitter and tried to criticize Lisandro. And I sat there and I saw the guy won every single ball, every single 50-50 ball, every single punt in the air by the goalkeeper, every single goal kick. The dude was everywhere, and I thought he was the best player on the field that particular day. I think Patrick had some praise for him as well. I think the kids played well. Now, this past weekend, I sat there, started to lose, and I tweeted that I thought he's been playing excellent, and then he made a mistake, cleared the ball into the center of the park, and they came right back and scored. And then even on the second goal, you could blame him a little bit for it, but even though the guy was offside. So he's making little mistakes, but you could tell that the kid, not a kid anymore, he's 26. He turned 26 yesterday, or today over there in the United States, wherever the hell you're listening. The dude's, he's ready to play. Now, whether it's over Jardel or Luizão? I think that's the main question. Luizão, if he keeps playing the way that he has over the last three, well, not the last, but the first three games of the season here, I think that's the question. Do you sit Luizão? Obviously, the answer is going to be no. He's your captain. He's going to play. But Luizão has not been anywhere near the Luizão that we saw last year. And I know that Patrick's dying to jump in here,
So am
but
I.
I'm kind of gonna spoil it for Patrick. But I will let him make his point though, which is Patrick has compared the whole Luizão saga with John Terry, two guys who were up there in age, who had spectacular seasons last year. Now this season, they both have struggled at the beginning of the season. Pat, go ahead, add to that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's a lot of parallels. Chelsea champions of England, Benfica champions of Portugal, both club captains, both icons at their respective clubs. And you notice that whenever, as soon as there is a drop in form from either of those players, it rocks the whole team, and it really destabilises the defence as a whole, and then subsequently the unit. We've seen Chelsea have conceded. I read the other day they've conceded something like 67% of the goals they conceded in Mourinho's first year in charge, 2004-2005, when they won the league. Benfica, okay, they've only conceded one against Sporting in the Super Cup, one against Arouca, but those both resulted in defeats. When you can't score at the other end, one goal suddenly becomes very crucial, and not being able to clean sheet costs you points and victories. And it was the same the other day. Benfica having to score 3 goals to win the game at home. Thankfully, we're used to them scoring several at home, but falling a goal behind, and then having got back in front, looking like throwing away 2 points. Luckily, we saw that wonderful goal from Jonas, but Luizão just looks half a yard slower, which was okay before. We know he's not been the quickest in recent years, but his positional play made up for that. But then suddenly, when you're playing on the limit of what the speed of the game allows, as soon as there is any drop in pace, and I don't know whether it's his advancing years, I don't know if he's had some fitness issues over the summer, I don't know what it is, but there is a marked difference in the performance levels of Luizão at the start of this season and at the back end of last season. And I think as things stand, if Jardel were to be fit, then I think Vitoria would have a decision to make. I don't think he would drop Luizão. You could make a case for doing that based on the 4 games we've seen so far this season.
Yeah, Steve.
Leave it to me to go to tactics, but I really think Luizão's issues are a bit down to a couple things that we're just not doing too well compared to what we used to do last year. We used to press the ball much better than we do now, and we used to compress spaces that teams were allowed to play in a lot better than we do now. If you look at the distances between all of our sectors, like defense, midfield, and attack, they're a lot wider than they are now, than they were before. So you have a lot of space that, okay, a guy gets a chance in his midfield to pick a pass behind Luizão, who you'll definitely see his lack of pace there. You'll also see in times where we were able to, because we were pressing well and because all of our lines were so compact, we were able to play offside a lot better, which we can't do right now because there's just too much time on the ball. So yes, Luizão was not going to get faster as he gets older, but I think this rapid decline that you're seeing isn't so much his physical abilities or even him having an off day as it is to things that were masking the bad qualities of his game, which is his pace and showing off his intelligence, where right now we're not be able to see that because it's not working out.
Yeah. So you think it has a lot to do with the way the team positions themselves, the way the team compresses itself on the team, the way the team leaves spaces. And it's funny that you say that because I noticed it, and I hadn't seen this for a while. I actually noticed Luizão coming out of the defensive line to challenge a guy, and I hadn't seen that in the longest time.
He did that a lot versus Moreirense, and I'm bringing this. There's another thing that I'm watching with this new Vitoria setup. Both Samaris and Pizzi kind of play in the same line.
Yeah.
And it looks like they don't have very set rules on who comes out to the ball first to press, who comes out to pinch. Samaris is quite good at it, but there's areas of the pitch that if PT's already pretty far forward, Samaris shouldn't be jumping into as well. And then when that happened is when you saw Luizão go even further just to make sure that we keep Moreirense pinned in. So there's obvious flaws in the way that we're playing right now, but from the Moreirense game to the previous two games, I did see some improvements. I thought, if anything, I didn't think the first half was as bad as a lot of people did. I thought there was some improvements in the way we played, the way we combined through the middle, but Rui Vitoria showed a lot of desperation, I thought, with the two halftime substitutions. What did you guys think?
Yeah. Cristiano, I'll go to you before we get into the halftime substitutions. I wanted for you to talk a bit about Vitor Andrade, who got his start after his performance in Aveiro. What do you make of Vitor Andrade? I actually thought he was pretty good. I didn't think he deserved to be subbed out at halftime.
I thought maybe nerves had gotten to him a little bit because it was his first game at least his first start, I should say, at Estadio de Luz. I didn't think he was as good as he was in the first two games. It looked like for me at times, it looked like he was a lot like Ola John, just standing around most of the time, not doing much. He wasn't terrible, but when he came out, I wasn't surprised and I wasn't shocked at all. But to be totally honest with you, I was sitting there watching the game, BSing. So when it comes to some of these details, these minor details that you're looking for, you're probably better off asking Pat or Steve.
Yeah.
Because
I don't want to.
BSing.
And I know Patrick. Patrick, I know that when you call in a game, you don't really have time to be looking at certain details. But do you see anything in the team's positioning this year as opposed to last year that's very noticeable? That's something that's more of a trademark of Rui Vitoria?
I haven't noticed anything tactically hugely different. I mean, my tactical understanding, to be honest, is not that acute. I'll readily admit that, and my role is slightly different, as you said, in just calling the action. What I will say is, the right side of the team is the weakest area of the team at this moment in time, and that's always going to be the case. I don't like to hark back to absent friends, but Salvio's injured, and Maxi's departed. And suddenly you've got two kids who last year were playing in the B team playing there. And I don't think that can be overlooked, really. I think Nelson Semedo has certainly got potential. He's 21. I'll just confirm that with Cristiano. Chris, is that right? He's 21?
He's 21, sir.
He's 21. Because we've got a few birthdays coming up. That's why I questioned that. Lisandro a few hours ago here. So technically the 1st of September, I think it's still it's still 1st of September over where you guys are.
Yeah.
And Julio Cesar, I think, is on the 5th. He'll be 36. So that's why I checked that. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, I think Nelson Semedo has a lot to do defensively, and Luizão plays alongside him. So I think Luizão is having to keep an eye on the youngster as well as doing his own job, which could be another reason to explain why there have been some holes in the defence recently. And then going forward, teams have been able to double up on Gaetan on the other side because they know that the threat down the right side is not as strong. And when you can't attack with the same intensity on both sides, that does make you a bit more predictable. I think the issue with Vitor Andrade with the Moreirense game, the difference is purely mentality. When you are coming off the bench, coming into a side that isn't performing and you're asked to change the game, it's much easier to be an impact sub as opposed to taking the initiative from the start. And I think that was a lot to ask of him, and he's only 19. He will get better, but I think there needs to be I think Ola John, now having departed, he had more experience, albeit not a huge deal more at 23 than Vitor Andrade. Then there has to be a plan in place now for the right-hand side. We know that Salvio will come back in, I think, towards the end of October, I think is the prognosis on that. But as things stand, I see huge improvements to be made on the right-hand side, and they have a fortnight now in which to do so with the international break.
Yeah, and Cristiano, picking up on what Steve had left at, the double substitution at halftime, it's something that you don't see a lot How did you see the double substitution by Vitoria? You think it was an act of desperation, perhaps something that, acabaram todo no asador? What do you think?
I don't think it was an act of desperation. I just think it was a coach that understood that you could not come away from starting to lose, especially after just having just dropped 3 points the week before. Could not come away with 0 points and not getting the victory here against a team that Benfica should be 10 out of 10 times. And so to me, I was, happy that the dude realized that he had really no money. He didn't have much time to waste there and come up with substitutions. But unlike the last time, the first game I started to lose, these substitutions in my eye didn't work. I mean, I thought Talisca did a whole bunch of nothing. You know what I'm saying? I just, he happened to get it wrong this time. But you know what? He got it right with Jimenez, who comes in the 70 something minute, and his first touch on the ball, he puts Benfica on the scoreboard, and then it looked like Benfica were going to fly away with the 3 points, and woofa, it got a little tight there. They saved it to the end. But I'll tell you this much. We saw things this week, and not just this week, man. So far in his first 3 games of the season, we've seen sitters that normally Jonas puts away with his eyes closed.
Yeah.
And he missed 2 in particular here in this game, that one in the first half and one in the second half, that he should have absolutely buried it, and he didn't, man. He shot it wide and shot the other one over. And you saw after he scored the what eventually wound up being the game-winning goal, the third goal of the game, he kind of put his hands up and apologized to the crowd, because he knew that he had messed up early. So, yeah, I think
he should be apologizing to me. I gave him the big build-up on the commentary. Here's Jonas for the leveler. I think I did it twice. So he should be apologising to me first and foremost, making me look bad. But Chris, I actually disagree on the Talisca thing. I think he gave a bit more thrust coming in, crisper passes, getting the ball wider quicker than Pizzi, who I thought had another bad game. I think Talisca certainly offered more than Pizzi. I think just a bit more of an option. You do start to wonder, is he going to shoot from range, which Pizzi doesn't always do, very rarely does. He got the ball wider out to Gaetan a lot quicker. He found a bit more space between the lines. I thought Talisca had a big impact, and it remains to be seen whether. Yeah. I did, and it remains to be seen what happens now in the next game, which is home to Belenenses, because we saw he was brave enough to go with Dieter Andrade to start, having seen his impact in the game in Aveiro against Arouca. And I think based on what I saw in that second half, I would start with Talisca ahead of Pizzi. That you should temper that by saying you can't do that every single game, chop and change based on who didn't have a good game and drop them and bring someone else in. But I think he is still trying to get to grips with his best 11. I think he has 9 or 10 of them there, but he has a couple of question marks. Seems that Samaris has moved ahead of Fazer, which I'm pleased about. I think the other central midfield spot is up for grabs. The right midfield spot has sorted itself out now until Salvio comes back. So I think that's pretty much all of the positions sorted now. I think the other question mark is up front alongside Jonas, and I expect him to keep going with Mitroglou. I actually think Jimenez's goal off the bench may count against him, in that he might be seen as an impact substitute.
Yeah, Steve, has Talisca gained any points on your book recently?
He had a very good second half. I also thought he did change the game, but it was Rui Vitoria wanted something different. He was looking for a lot more direct type of play. So you've seen a lot more, like Patrick said, quicker passes, getting out to the flanks quicker, getting into Mitroglou as early as possible. He was given different instructions, and that's the type of game that suits Talisca. Talisca likes to hit those long breaking passes and stuff. So yes, he's growing on me in that sense, that he has that attribute, that spot to his game where he can play the longer ball and whatnot. Where PT likes to be a little bit more neat and tidy and connect passes a little bit shorter. Talisca likes to hit a longer pass, which is what it looks like we're trying to do.
Yeah, and Cristiano, I'll go to you. Patrick has said that.
We just lost Chris. Yeah.
Cristiano go. But so Patrick, I'll go to you. Like you mentioned, you said that Mitroglou is going to keep starting. But do you feel that Mitroglou is feeling this pressure now that Jimenez came in? He made an impact, scored a goal, and to be quite honest, Mitroglou has had a lot of sitters during these games that he's wasted a lot of goals.
Yeah, I think in some ways it may help him knowing that Jimenez is there, knowing that he's come on and scored. We saw just how desperate it got against Arouca when Jimenez came on, and I don't think he should have played in that game at all. Really, it was very similar to Mitroglou coming on in the Super Cup, having joined the same week, and I don't think he was ever going to make an impression. But the run that he made to get the equaliser was fantastic. Just able to generate all the pace on the header. This is Jimenez, just with the run across his marker, which I thought was fantastic, and making the most of those crosses from Gaetan. I think in some ways that may help Mitroglou, the competition there, knowing that he has to raise his game. I think he, as things stand, he has the starting berth ahead of Jimenez. He got that goal against Estoril as well, which was important, and that was the opening goal. A lot of parallels, really, in the timing of the goal and the source, both of it coming crosses from the left and headers. That's a point I made with Cristiano after the game. But I think Mitroglou has at least another 60 to 70 minutes ahead of him. I think Rui Vitoria will start him alongside Jonas. I think that's his preferred combination, with Jimenez to challenge and to be there as a different option, given that Benfica have 4 competitions to play. I think ideally they'd like probably one more up front. But there you go. The window is closed.
Yeah, and Nelson Oliveira is gone.
Mitroglou to me is a shittier version of Cardozo. Same exact type of player. Can't do much else outside the box. He's got the beautiful left foot, but I thought Cardozo was better. As far as with the head, I think they're very much alike. What do you mean, no?
Mitroglou is better with his head, but he's not better than Cardozo.
I just said that. That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
He's a shittier version of Cardozo. That's what you said.
But you said with the head that Cardozo might be better.
I thought with the head, they're no. I thought comparable. I thought that they're, to me, in my opinion, I thought that they're very comparable with the head. I just think Cardozo's left foot was magical, especially on free kicks, and especially against Os Lagartos. My man always seemed to hit the target. And so to me, it worries me a little bit, because the one thing about Jimenez, I don't think he's got the world's greatest feet, also. So I don't know, because we did see that one chance. I don't know if you guys recall. I know Patrick and I talked about it over and over. The one chance that he got against Arouca, I think it was Mitroglou who actually got him the ball in a box, and he should have buried it with his left foot, and he tried to. Yeah. He was running down the left, and he went with his right foot, and he shot it over. That kind of left me asking and wondering, asking some questions. Now, I don't want to judge him based on that one game, just like I'm not going to sit here and judge him based on the one goal that he scored, which, let's be fair, I mean, what was it, like his only touch of the game? I mean, it was a very important touch. But, his first touch of the game, he scores the goal. So I don't want to sit here and say that the kid should absolutely get the start now. But I'll tell you this, I'm not sold on Mitroglou yet. And I'm going to go back to this whole Talisca thing, because I lost connection here. Yeah, you guys could say he played well. That's fine. To me, he did a whole lot of nothing. His instructions were to come in and play the ball quickly and go forward. The team, like some of you have mentioned here on the pod so far, the team was in desperation mode, and it was totally different than what Pizzi did. And it's a player that I don't think has a spot on Benfica, and I expect a lot more from that position, whether it's Talisca, whether it's Pizzi, whether it's Feja, whether it's Samaris, whether it's Cristiano, whomever plays that position, I expect a lot more, and I don't think Benfica has that player right now on this team that can make the difference at that position. Yes, Benfica won the title last year with Pizzi at the 8, but it's totally different. You guys have mentioned we had Lima doing the dirty work for Jonas. We had Moxie. Last year we only realistically had one weakness defensively on the back line, which was Eliseo. This year we have 2. So it's a lot of different question marks with this team. Yeah. So I still would not be surprised if come the next game you see Pizzi back at 8 and you see Talisca out wide instead of Andrade, because there's still too many question marks even with Andrade. I don't think that spot's been locked up by anyone on this team yet.
Yeah, but Chris, do you feel that the fact that Jimenez scored a goal, albeit his first touch, and perhaps all that he did in that game, do you feel that Mitroglou is feeling that pressure, and as a result will make him a better player?
No. I mean, I think Vitoria is going to put him out there. and he's going to roll the dice with him, give him another chance or two. And then if obviously Jimenez is coming off the bench and scoring goals and Mitroglou still doing nothing, yeah, I think then the pressure starts and the pressure mounts on him, and he knows that he's going to have to pick his game up. But I don't think it comes down to that. I think he's a professional soccer player, and he knows that at any moment, if his levels drop, that he could lose his starting spot. So I don't think that competition is going to make him better or any worse, because like I said, he's a professional player, and these guys know that everybody's there to get their job at any second.
And Steve, one more thing before we move on to the next topic. Samadi's had a pretty bad game as far as missed a lot of passes, but then he scores that goal to redeem himself. What are you thinking right now about Samadi's? Do you think that there's a certain uncertainty on his part? While last season he knew that he was always going to have a spot, now he's been interchanged with Fesa, albeit he started the past 2 games. Do you think that there's a little bit of not unsettling by Samaris?
I think the whole Fesa thing and the couple times where he's played next to Fesa has unsettled him a bit. I think that there's the changes that we've seen in the team this year are probably a bit more to do with it than the mental aspect between him and Fesa. As Patrick said earlier, I think between Fesa and Samaris, there's a lot more of a footballer in Samaris. There's a guy who knows how to disguise a pass. There's a guy who has a little bit of creativity to get himself out of a hole and play a pass that Fesa couldn't, because he wasn't able to get himself out of that hole. He doesn't have that extra bit of ability. So I think Samaris knows that he probably has a bit more than what Fesa can offer. He's probably just working his way into the system and into what Rui Vitoria wants from him, just like everybody else is at the moment. For me, I think Samaris is hands down our best 6. It's just, I think the roles between Samaris and the other midfielder have to become a little bit more defined. Right now, I think they're basically asked to do the same things, just splitting the pitch in half, and I don't think that's going to work. I think things have to become a little bit more thought out and defined.
Let me ask you guys a question. On this team that I think all of us agree is not the same defensively as they were last year, isn't Frazier better suited to play that holding midfield position because he's much better defensively than Samaris is?
I don't think he's much better defensively, and I think he sits way too far back when he does defend, allowing the team that wins the ball on the counter attack a lot more room to play in. I think Samaris likes to play a little bit further forward than Fesa, which allows him to break down counterattacks before they're a lot of trouble for us. And really, a guy who can keep the ball better is always going to be better than Fesa, personally. I think a guy who treats the ball better means that you're not going to be getting counterattacked as often. I don't think so. I disagree, Chris.
Yeah.
I'm not making a point. I'm asking the questions.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry.
It's not for you to disagree. I'm asking a question.
But I like disagreeing with you, Chris. That's part of our.
He's a little bit rusty, man. He hasn't been on here for a bit, Chris. Give him a break, man. Any other thoughts on the Moreirense game before we take a short break?
No.
Yeah.
Cristiano,
The Liga Norte.
Did they treat you right in the press box this time? Did they give you febras in a small and a banana or what?
Yes, they did. And you know what I did? Because I'm such a team player, I gave my bifana sandwich to Patrick. And I even got him an extra small. And I sat next to Patrick in the play-by-play booth. It was absolutely wonderful this time around. I
can't believe you took that risk, Patrick.
He was very well behaved, I have to say. Not a peep out of
Patrick
him.
said
The rest of the weekend I couldn't shut him up, but during the first 45 minutes he was sat next to me. He was great. The perfect co-commentator. Didn't say a word.
Patrick said you can only sit if you don't say a word. I said I won't say a word. We had a glance at one another at one point. That was it for like 2 seconds. We hit eye to eye, and that was it. I said, all right, cool, and I didn't bother him the whole time. Then I left him. I bounced.
Yeah.
But as I was saying, the Liga North chicks are fuego. Those are the biggest reforços do Benfica este ano is the Liga North chicks. They're all right.
All right. What about the Benfica cheerleaders, bro?
I don't know, man. Some of them look like they're 13, so I didn't even want to look. I couldn't tell.
All right. So let's take a short break here for Nelson's halftime headlines, and we'll be right back. All right, and we're back. Second half of the Benfica podcast. My name is Alfredo. I'm here with Steve, Patrick, and Cristiano Oliveira for the second half. Let's talk about Champions League draw. Champions League draw took place this past week. I think it was, Thursday?
Thursday,
Thursday.
Yeah. And
5:45 local time.
Yeah, Benfica was drawn into what? Group C, was it? Group C?
Yes.
I think Group C with Atletico Madrid, which was in Pot 2, Galatasaray from Turkey in Pot 3, and FC Astana in Pot 4. The first, the one team that every team wanted in their group was the one that Benfica drew, which is great. But to me, the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty about this Astana team, it's very dangerous to especially when you have to travel that much. Steve, I'll let you go first. What do you think of the drawing, bro?
I don't think there's any easy groups in the Champions League. I think if you look at our drawing, you might think, oh, okay, we missed some of the very big teams, but I to be absolutely honest, I don't like it at all. I think the travel to Kazakhstan is going to be awful. I think the games in Turkey are always very, very difficult. Galatasaray probably have a team just as good as ours or around there, and Atletico Madrid are a fantastic team, really. So I don't think the team last year had the quality to play in the Champions League. I'm of the same opinion this year, and I do not. I liked our draw last year better than I do this year, to be honest.
Yeah, Patrick, what do you think of the draw?
Well, first of all, the flight to Astana, to Kazakhstan, is actually longer than the flight over to Steve in Toronto. So there's already I remember I was talking to Chris about this the other day, but in the Estoril commentary, I made a big point about the difference in the travel schedule between Estoril, who played I think 6 summer friendlies, 3 of which were local, and 8 summer friendlies, 4 were local and 4 were at home. So I think they travelled 500 miles in total over 8 games. Benfica had travelled 10,000 miles or something crazy like that. And that's going to be difficult. They also play on a plastic pitch, so it's like having an 8-hour flight and then playing against Boavista, so that's going to be interesting, although I believe they've changed that now. And even the Turkey flight is long. I think the Turkey flight is 4.5 hours, and the atmosphere there is well renowned for being one of the most difficult in Europe. I think you have to look at it this way. Typically, you need 10 points to go through. The only time you wouldn't need 10 points would be if you have a team running away with it, winning all 6. So you need Atletico Madrid to win all 6 games and get 18 points. Then 6 or 7 might see you through. But you have to look at Benfica winning all 3 home games and then picking up a point elsewhere. I think that's the only way they're going to be able to do so. I don't see them winning in Turkey. I don't see them winning at the Calderon in Madrid. So you're looking at 1 point or 3 points away in Kazakhstan. I hope that's not sounding negative, but that was my first reaction after the draw.
Yeah, to me the big key is to the same results that Galatasaray does against Astana. We have to do the same. We can't do one less, because that's going to be the big key. Because let's say we split with Galatasaray, assuming that that we're probably not going to win at the Calderon, which is most likely probably not. The last game of the group stages is at the Luz against Atletico Madrid, so we might be inspired at that time. But for me, the big key is to match whatever Galatasaray does against Astana, beat Astana on both games, and maybe get a point out of that last fixture in Lisbon against Madrid. Cristiano, we're talking about the Champions League draw. What are your thoughts on the teams that we got? Hello.
No, Chris.
There he goes. Anyway, so for me, I don't know if you guys are the same opinion, but I think it's going to be hard to nick any points off Atletico Madrid unless, like I said.
It's a good point you make, Alfredo, about the fixtures and the timing of when we play Atletico Madrid. The fact that Benfica play against Atletico Madrid on the final match day means that if they're already through, that could work in Benfica's favour. If they're already through, that would mean that they're most likely at least a win ahead. As long as they're not 3 ahead, and then it comes down to head-to-head results, they could afford to drop points against Benfica. And that could work in Benfica's favour if Atletico are already through after match day 5. But I think it's the 2 games against Galatasaray back-to-back, match days 3 and 4. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. So I think that will have a huge that will have a huge bearing on who goes through. I think after the draw was made, I think we'd all agree that Atletico Madrid start as big favourites, Astana start as the most likely side to finish 4th. And then it's one of Benfica and Galatasaray for second spot. I think we've got Chris back now. I'd like to hear his thoughts on it as well.
I think it's a tough group, to be honest. I think Atletico is Atletico. I don't even have to get into them to explain to you exactly what it is that they do. There's an exceptional team. I think the trip to Astana is going to be a ball breaker. And I think Benfica absolutely has the obligation of picking up all 6 points against them. And then the tricky match is Galatasaray. But the one thing is this: when you go out into Istanbul, it's crazy. The fan support is absolutely magnificent. And right now, man, I'm not sure if they're not a step ahead of Benfica. Now, the one thing that could give us a little bit more confidence, they lost 2 very good players, at least for them. Felipe Melo joined Inter, and another player, Patrick, I don't know if you recall who it is, and if you do, please help out. But they lost 2.
Alex Telles, the left player.
Okay, they lost 2 key players.
To Inter as well.
So, yeah, okay, also to Inter. So hopefully that'll give us a little bit more confidence, and they'll struggle like we are right now to replace some key players.
Yeah. Felipe Melo, of course, the Casteiro, the part pernas. So we're glad that he's gone. But I'll run through where those fixtures sit as far as in the context of our league. We go to Belenenses, which comes up right after the international break. Actually, we host Belenenses right after the international break. Then after that, we're home to Astana. Following that, we go to Porto after the Astana game. So not a very difficult game for the Champions League, but nonetheless, it's a game that you must win on match day 1 against the easier team of the group. You have to win. So it's a game that you can't really let go. And then you go to the Dragão, as I've said, host Paços Ferreira. Go to Spain to play Atletico Madrid. Then you're at União de Madeira. Then you travel to Turkey for Galatasaray. You play Sporting following that fixture. You're at Tondela, and then the second half of the group stage, Galatasaray. You play Galatasaray after that, and then at home, Boa Vista. You travel those 11-hour flights. It's a good thing that we signed up with Fly Emirates. We go to Astana, then we go to Braga, follow Astana, and then we got Académica and Atletico Madrid comes up on the 8th of December. I'm concerned, Patrick, you said not only the 11,000 miles. Is the Astana pitch a dome? Is it covered or is it open air?
I'm not sure about that, but it's artificial turf from what I understand. Yeah,
right.
6,200 kilometers. I think it's something in the region of an 8-hour flight. Kazakhstan.
Very nice.
Is that where Borat? That's Borat, right?
That's Borat.
That's where he hails from.
I like you. Do you like me? Yeah.
How much? But what I wanted to say is that they actually play FC Astana on the 25th of November, and I'm sure that the winter has rolled rolled by in Kazakhstan at that time. So
It
I mean,
has, so much so that the river is frozen over from the start of November. I read in Abola the other day that Astana is the second coldest capital city on earth after Ulaanbaatar in I think it's, where is that? Is that Malaysia? I think.
Bro,
No,
that's why we bring you on here.
Mongolia. Excuse
Well,
me,
yeah,
Mongolia.
it
There you
couldn't be.
go.
I don't think it could be Malaysia. It had to be
Just
Mongolia.
we bring him
It's
out here
Malaysia,
just
like,
to be able
wow.
to pronounce those cities. I mean, Patrick, that's spectacular.
Yeah, so we play Astana on the 25th of November, end of November. It's actually my birthday if you guys want to write it down.
Epa!
So that's going to be difficult, but like I said, Galatasaray is going to be tough. But Steve, it's a difficult game. But last season, there was, I think, all the teams were really fairly even in that group that we had with Monaco, Zenit. What was the German team? Leverkusen.
Leverkusen.
It was a pretty even game that could have swung either way. I think this game there's a high team, a team that's stronger than the others. Then there's a weaker team in Astana, and then there's Galatasaray and us, which is where the battle is going to lay, Steve.
I know, but the fact that we overlook a team like Astana is what worries me.
Well, we can't.
Exactly my point. And then we have them right before the Porto game. Am I right? Right before the Porto game at home, where there's going to be. Where do you lie the weight of?
Well, it depends. It depends on your standing so far, Steve. It depends on what you've done so far in the Champions League. That will definitely answer your question.
It's the first game of the Champions League.
It's the first game of the Champions League.
Oh, the first. I know.
Yeah, the Porto game comes right after the first game of the Champions League.
And you need to.
I'm just going to check this, but sorry, Steve. I believe
told
Porto are
about
playing Chelsea in the first game, so I'm just going to check that. But carry on.
I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
they are.
I'm pretty sure you're right. So they're going to have a game where they have no pressure on them, and they'll be able to solely focus on our game. Where we're going to have a game where we're at home playing against little Astana. That if things don't go right, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
So I don't like the look of the way the fixtures line up. I don't like the look of the traveling. Do we not play Galatasaray right before we're going to Sporting?
Steve, I don't exactly want to call it no pressure on them. They're playing a Chelsea team that's been playing like crap. And
Chris,
so
I'll just actually correct that. They're traveling. They go away to Dynamo Kiev, so they're coming back from a long trip to Ukraine.
So they're going out there also, freezing cold.
Benfica home to Astana and Porto away to Kiev.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more even.
Yeah. Yeah. So
is that where Miguel Veloso plays in Kiev or something like that?
Yes.
I think
yes.
so.
Tá bom. Tá frio lá.
And Porto play the following day to Benfica, so 1 day's less recovery as well.
Right. So that's going to be key, those fixtures. But I'm hoping that we don't take the same approach as last year, and we take this Champions League a little bit more serious. I think that's going to be one of the directives to Rui Vitoria by Luis Felipe Vieira, is to take the Champions a little bit more serious this year. We've also haven't sold any major players by major money, so that money from the Champions League making it to the next round will also fall into Isla.
How can you tell this guy to take this competition a little bit more serious than years previous when you went out and really got nothing in? I mean, Benfica brought nothing in. They should have at least made an attempt to bring. I mean, especially now, after 3 games, you saw that Benfica has a couple positions that absolutely need to be strengthened. And that's what I'm referring to when brought nothing in. Because you could mention Mitroglou and Jimenez, you could mention the 2 Moroccans and so on and so forth. But in reality, I guess...
Yeah, but Chris, the last year's approach, that was the game that we played with Derlei and Cristante in the Champions League, bro. So, I mean...
Tá bem, mas ao mesmo tempo, I think that you can't really put much pressure on the dude because this is not the JJ's teams that we've seen in years previous that had stars at basically all 11 positions. So I don't know if you can put much
Yeah, but
pressure on him.
you have to put your best effort forward, I think.
You should always put your best, especially in that competition.
Last year that wasn't the case.
Os gajos estavam cansados.
And just on signings, with regards to signings, you can be very clever, and the way you structure a deal means that you don't have to pay much upfront at all. I've seen that a lot this summer with Inter, who have brought in 9 players, and haven't spent too much. And the way you can structure deals means that you can delay the payments for 12 months. And I agree with Chris. I agree with both you in the fact that Alfredo, yes, the Champions League does offer a good chance for revenue. I think it's €2 million per win. 500,000 euros per draw, 12 million euros they've already got guaranteed for reaching the group stage, and then the TV rights money that you get if you make the knockout stage of the competition is absolutely huge and is not negligible at all. So I think perhaps the club could have brought in more players with a view to those players performing, helping the club through to the next stage, and then using that increased revenue to really offset the cost of the players when the payments come up. So they've gone down a different route. I'm no financial expert. I'll bow to the club on that. But I would have liked to have seen an experienced right back come in and perhaps another striker as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure with the strategy. I know that we weren't that active in the market. I think that the fact that we kept Gaitan, and we'll segue right into the next segment, that we kept Gaitan was huge. I don't know what they had to promise Gaitan. I don't know what they had to put out to keep Gaitan in. But that was huge, the fact that we kept Gaitan. I mean, it would have been bad if we hadn't signed anybody and would have lost Gaitan, Steve.
Absolutely. When does the Russian market close, though? That's my only worry.
No, but Gaitan is not going to Russia.
Okay, I hope you're right. But you're absolutely, the whole keeping Gaitan was imperative. I mean, Gaitan is on par with Jonas on our team as the most talented, most important, whatever you want to call him. That's what Gaitan is. So keeping him was extremely important. The only thing is, I look back to when Rui Vitoria was first hired, and Luis Felipe Vieira said he would have the same types of conditions that previous coaches have had. I'm going with Chris and Patrick on this. I don't think he's been given the exact conditions that JJ had. I mean, we lost Lima, a guy who was very good for us, and we went out and took a stab at Mitroglou, who's had not so great of times at Fulham. Then we also got Raul Jimenez, who looks to be decent, but I don't think he's the same kind of player as Lima. So put that on top of Maxi and us not forking out the cash to renew him. I don't think it was fair to say that he has the same conditions that JJ did.
Yeah, no, I have to agree when it comes to that. But I mean, for all we know, that Rui Vitoria could have, which I find kind of hard. Rui Vitoria, Patrick, could have turned around and said, "No, I'm good."
Potentially. The fact that the Gaitan is staying is like a new signing in itself. Albeit a cliche from me, but blame the day job for that. I think, I actually think I would go as far as saying that Nico Gaitan is even more important than Jonas, and even more on current form, even more important than Julio Cesar and Luisao. I think just look at it, 4 assists from 2 home games already, and he just, every time he gets on the ball, something happens, and I think he is Benfica's standout performer. I think even on the away games he's been a bit quiet thus far. But I think absolutely huge to keep him. It's his 6th season, and every summer has been speculation about his future, and every summer he's stayed. So I think a lot of Benfica fans, I don't think anyone would begrudge him if he did decide to move on after this season, having given so many years service. But his loss, if he does look at it that way in terms of moving on, is definitely Benfica's game.
Yeah, the biggest thing that has impressed me about Gaetan, and we've mentioned this year, I think almost every pod this during the preseason and now, is the fact that despite all the rumors and all the supposed interest from other teams to get him, the guy has just been exceptional. He's been the best player on the team. His level has not dropped off, and he's right now, Steve. He's showing like he's in mid-season form.
Absolutely, he's been fantastic. I mean, those crosses for the goals on the weekend were almost like what some guys would call a 3-yard pass. He was making it look that easy. So it's just like that.
Yeah. So on the other side, leaving were Nelson Oliveira, who went to Nottingham Forest. Nottingham is what, championship team, Patrick?
Yes, mid-table in the championship. Big club actually. They won the European Cup back in the I think it's the 70s with Brian Clough. So big club, but yeah.
I don't know.
Let's hope he gets some playing time there. And another championship club have taken Ola John as well.
Yeah, Reading.
In Reading. So
yeah, I'm not sure that I like that move for Oliveira. To be honest with you, I much have rather have seen him in Portugal, doing something maybe for Braga or maybe for even a Guimarães. I much would have rather kept him at the Liga, because I really don't know how much time he's going to get playing for Nottingham Forest. But for a championship team, if you're not breaking into the 11 and keeping the spot in the 11, then I don't know what else to think about Nelson Oliveira, Patrick.
And scoring goals as well.
Right.
Yeah, he needs to be playing football. He needs to be scoring goals. And Benfica need to keep the three fit, I think, in Jonas, Mitroglou, and Jimenez. I think it is going to be two of those three, and I don't really see many other options besides that. So they have to really keep them fit, because as soon as you get an injury to one of those, then you might have to change system. We've already seen that Jonas up on his own is not going to work. There is the possibility of playing 4-3-3, I think, perhaps. But that does. I'm slightly concerned by the potential loss of a striker to injury or lack of form.
Yeah, and Steve, I had forgotten all about him, but Juricic stayed.
I know. And as far as I know, so did Cristante.
Yeah. But Steve, worried at all that supposedly our biggest signings of the summer market in Tarbat and Carcela have absolutely done nothing in this team as far as imposing themselves on the starting lineup?
Tarat is exactly what I expected, so I can't say I'm worried. Carcela, I just would like to know the extent of his injury, or if he's just been found not good enough. From what I'd seen of him, he seemed to have very good technique and a nice left foot. I thought he could be useful. He doesn't look out of shape or anything like that. So I'm hoping to think that this is just an injury and he might have his chance to get into the 11. Maybe we're on the right-hand side where Vitor Andrade played last week. I don't know. I know I do not want to see him as an attacking fullback or whatever it was he supposedly played against Arouca, because I don't think that's his game. I don't think he's got the defensive abilities needed to do that. So that's not where I want to see him anyway.
All right, so we'll just have to see. So we're gonna wrap it up here. Chris is gone. His phone was dying, so his battery is gone, and Patrick needs to get to bed, and Steve also. So that's about it for us. You've been listening to the Benfica podcast. At 10CO10 is where you can find Cristiano on Twitter. At Planet Benfica, planetbenfica.com.
Co.uk.
Planetbenfica.co.uk. Check those guys out. At Patrick Hendrick with
Kendrick.
1K.
Kendrick.
Patrick Hendrick with one. Patrick Kendrick, but at Patrick Kendrick, but there's only 1K.
There is only 1K.
So you read it Patrick Hendrick.
No, there's no H, man.
That's true. That. I'm sorry.
I'll change my Twitter handle already just for you.
At Steve Santos 6 and at Steve Santos 6 and at Benfica Podcast, BenficaPodcast.com. Also on Facebook, Talking to the Doll Benfica Podcast page. So thanks a lot for checking us out. For you guys watching us live on the internet, I appreciate it. This will be up on iTunes. Don't forget to subscribe. It's free. We apologize once again for taking a week off last week, but we promise that now that there's no Benfica game, we'll be back next week. Thanks a lot, everybody. Patrick, pleasure as always. We'll see you next time, my friend.
Cheers, guys.
And Steve, I don't know when I'll see you. You're always hit and miss these days.
Sorry.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I'll talk to you next week. We'll talk to you next week. See ya.